Welcome to Quilting on the Side, the podcast for quilters who are building a business while juggling real life.
I'm Tori from Hey Tori, a quilter, past pattern designer and teacher, and now a digital marketing coach for quilting entrepreneurs.
And I'm Andi from True Blue Quilts, long arm quilter, pattern designer, and quilting instructor.
Between the two of us, we've taught workshops, launched programs, joined summits, and stayed up way too late trying to finish one more quilt binding.
On this show, we're sharing what's worked and what hasn't in our interviews from incredible guests, everyone from quilting solo business owners to CEOs.
If you're running a quilting or creative business or dreaming about starting one, you'll find real talk, honest strategies, and a whole lot of support here.
So grab your notebook, grab your pen, and let's dive into another episode of Quilting on the Side. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Quilting on the Side. We are thrilled to welcome today Kathryn LeBlanc, and you have a variety of hats in your quilt business and online endeavors, and we'll dive into all of those, but we do want to give you a chance to introduce yourself and your business.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So Kathryn LeBlanc is my name, and my business name is Dragonfly's Quilting Design Studio. It's had a few renditions, but that's where we're at right now. And I also say I'm also a.k.a. author Kathryn Mykel, so that's what I go by in the cozy mystery world. But yeah, I'm glad to be here.
That's awesome. Two of my loves are quilts and reading, so check those boxes right off. Wonderful. And we also like to start out with finding out how people got started in quilting. So tell us about your first quilt.
It's funny. So I basically got started doing pillowcases. I think a lot of quilters do that, and they're not even really technically quilted, but it gets you, involved with fabric and sewing, and kind of that's like the general start of it. Not a single one person in my entire family or extended family quilted. Like, so I'm the first, I'm the only. Still. But yeah, I got started with pillowcases, and then I think I went to the local Joann's like most, and I followed the same trajectory as most brand new quilters. I looked at YouTube videos, and I, muddled through learning how to try to do it myself. I made a king size quilt on my first go around that was terrible, and it fell apart as soon as we washed it. And, so like I have the same story as most quilters. But you can imagine my guy's surprise when he washed the quilt, and then all of a sudden it was like a big lump in the middle because didn't really understand that you have to actually quilt it once you make.
Oh. Do you have a favorite quilt that you've made?
Do I have a favorite? I think I do actually. It's I don't have it here with me. It's like yellow and teal, and it's got a lot of white background. And I basically, when I was learning how to long arm, I like threw the kitchen sink at it. So it is literally just a mash of whatever my brain came up with in terms of quilting. And I just think that's why I love it so much.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Very cool.
How did you turn your hobby into a business?
Well, once I really discovered quilting, once I figured it all out, I basically did it like night and day, 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 for like 2 years straight. And I just ignored everybody else and everything else that was going on in the world. And I would go to work and I would come home and I would sew. I would go to work, I would come home, and on the weekends I would sew all weekend long, and everybody would just be like, all right, well, she's gone, And I was working a corporate office job, and I needed to get out of it. And I came home one day and I said, you know what? I think we're just going to open a quilt shop. And he went, what? I was like, well, he goes, I didn't have any money. I didn't have any fabric. I didn't have any clue. I didn't have a location and nothing. But within a matter of days, we found a location. I figured out some logistical things that I needed to know, and I quit. I gave my 3 weeks, and 4 weeks later, I opened a quilt shop.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So where did you go for that business knowledge for opening a shop and sourcing the inventory and all that kind of stuff?
At the very, very beginning, I had a lot of help from the local quilt shops that were in my area, but I also was able to utilize Fab Shop Forum. So they're a really great resource for when you're getting started and needing to learn all those things. So I did utilize them quite a bit.
Yeah,
But
that
I
is
had absolutely no idea what I was doing for, like, the first year, yeah, so it was all like
right. Yeah, I
yeah.
have a little bit of that behind the scenes knowledge because my mom took a wild ride during her retirement and partnered with a friend to open a yarn and fabric store. So again, she came from the nursing industry. There were no business owners in our family.
Right.
So I remember, going to different business conferences and like you said, the Fab Shop Network um forum is a great resource for business owners. So
That the year that I opened, they had, market was on the East Coast, like, the one and only time. I waited for it to come back, and it never did. So we ended up going down to market. I had only been open, like, 2 or 3 weeks, and we went down to market, and I did take some business classes there from, Linda Hahn,
mhm.
who's from Frog Hollow, and, so I took a little bit of business class there from her, and I muddled through it the whole way. I mean, it wasn't easy, and it wasn't fun, and if I had to do it all over again, I know what I
And
would do, but
so how long was the shop open? Or I mean, is it
uh,
it's not anymore?
it's
What
not, no, I closed
okay,
it just before COVID,
okay.
which was interesting, but I wanna say I left my job in 2014, I think I opened in 2015. I think I was open for 5 years, I wanna
Mhm,
say. So
mhm.
not very long, but long enough to
Right.
I had some health issues from, being without
Mhm.
health insurance and being
Yeah.
unemployed, technically unemployed, I
Mhm.
guess, if you wanna call it that. And I had to get those addressed, so it made sense just to do that. And then when I closed the store, I was faced with, "Okay, now what do I do?" Because I have no income. Like, I went from working a salary job where I made a good salary and bonuses to opening a quilt shop where I made no money every week, and then I closed the shop and I had nothing. So then I did Facebook Lives all the way through COVID, and I actually made more money doing Facebook Lives for 2 years than I did the entire 5 years I was open, with the quilt shop. So that was, like, a huge blessing. So I had, like, a really great boom, and then those died down once COVID ended. Those went
Mhm.
bye-bye. Like, I mean, there was a few that stayed longevity-wise, but for the most part, those Facebook Lives and the people's, like, hunger to buy
Mhm.
fabric, that all died too when COVID died, so, or when COVID died down, I should say.
Right. Right.
Um, so then again, I was faced with, "Okay, well, what do I do?" So this is, like, my entire life is I just pivot from, when things are starting to change, I see that change, and I feel it, and I can go, "Okay, what's next?" So when I was working, one of my goals was to be able to just be on the road, be able to travel and just enjoy life. And I wanted to find a job where I could do that mobily and didn't have to be stuck to a house or, whatever. And it just didn't happen. But when I stopped doing the lives and I was faced with, okay, now what do I do? I was like, okay, now maybe it's your time to figure out what you were going to do 5, 6, 7 years ago when you decided that you wanted to be this, live free person. And so I went to school to learn how to self-publish, and that's how I got into publishing the books, which fits into the lifestyle. I wanted to be a permanent, traveler, and, so it's been this, like, progression from one thing to another as the need and as life changed and the world changed and
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah, yeah,
I remember connecting with you on some of those, collaborations that you were doing in during the pandemic.
COVID, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
was that when the, what and w t you've had so many with themed titles that I'm forgetting some of those early
Yeah.
ones, the block of the month
We
that
started with the 50 states.
Mhm,
So what we did was we just pulled in designers, anybody who wanted to participate, and we offered a free block every week, and we did it based on the 50 states. And so, or 52, we had
mhm,
Hawaii and Puerto Rico and all that stuff. Yeah, that was our first one, and it was a huge success because people were jonesing for some kind of, experience where they could participate in things together because nobody could do anything. And so even though we were separate and far apart, we were able to come together and all participate in the same sort of program, not only from a designer standpoint, but also from a customer, a quilter standpoint. So it was really good. We also had a online quilt show that we did where we kind of showcased each other's quilts. And then the second year we did for the 50 weeks, we did sewing themed, which was that always goes over really well because anytime it's quilting and sewing, people gobble that up. So that went really well. And then after COVID, it kind of died down. Like, we didn't really need to do that,
mhm,
like we were
mhm.
on to other things. I was hesitant to pick it up back up again because it's a huge endeavor to you know, run that for 50 weeks, like
Yeah.
anybody, even the people just coming in and out. It's a lot of work, for anybody. So I was always reluctant to pick that back up again, even though lots of people wanted to. They wanted to do it. And one day I was talking to my writer friends, and that's how this came up. Like it's funny. We meet every single morning and we write together as like coworkers, and that kind of stemmed from not only being coming off of COVID and all, but also being an author is like a lonely,
Mhm.
same with being a designer. Sometimes it's a very lonely, singular kind of job. And so we meet every morning, and we were talking about it. And one of our friends down in Louisiana, she said, "Well, why don't you do like the 50 Shades?" And I was like, "Well, that's genius." So then here we are. So now we're like into I think week 9 or so of 50 Shades of Gray. Yeah, it's
So,
been
having run so many of these, collaborations, which I totally understand, huge endeavor, what are some of the, pros, cons, do's and don'ts for that type of collaborative effort?
I think, from a financial standpoint, it's always good to be at the beginning of anything, any kind of even if so we also do this in the book industry as well. We have these collaborations, they're called multiple author projects, and we could have 20 authors and we all write our own books and we collaborate them under one series. And so it translates to both and it always pays to be at the very beginning. Like it is what it is. But so if you're gonna start it, obviously put yourself at the beginning, obviously have a strong group of people at the beginning who you can count on. They're gonna deliver on time, they've got a big support system, whatever, lots of customers, whatever the case may be. I would say that. And then I would just say being organized, like I try to set up my monthly emails so that they go automatically so I don't have to really think about it. Um I always fall, like, midway. I'm a starter and I'm a finisher, but I'm not a middle kind of person, so, like, always when I get to that middle, I always falter and I have missteps. But, just trying to be consistent, trying to set up, a schedule, trying to set up automations, like, whatever you can do to make sure that, you're not falling every other week or whatever. And, try to have fun with it. Like, the last one we just did was not fun. It was, like, awful. We tried to do videos, and no fault of any one person or myself, like, it didn't work. It was like, sometimes they just don't work, and it was a struggle to
Yeah,
get
because it
through.
seemed like with
Yeah,
that video one that, was the Fall in Love with Quilting Club, that
yeah.
you took the idea of workshop summit lessons and then extended that over a year, and where do you think the disconnect went? Were people just not they couldn't hold their interest for workshop type events for that long, or
I think that people they wanted to be able to pop in when it was their time and pop back out again, which is totally fine. You can do that when you're doing the kind of quick release content with just the
Mhm.
patterns and stuff like that. But with the videos, people are watching your video week after week after week, so they're interacting with you. So you have to come back and say, "Hey, how are you?" "Oh, you watched my video. That's great." You have to foster that community of customer in order to make them your customer. They're not just going to be like, they're not going to go running you down to,
Right. So you're talking from the designer participant side. They needed to check in with the community all throughout the program, not just the initial time their video went live.
Yeah, I think
Mhm.
just all around the expectations were, on my side and on their side and probably on a customer side. I don't know. It was just one of those things that like it was a good idea. It could have been really great, but we just didn't execute it. Well. I don't know.
Well, and some of
And
these things you don't know until you try.
yeah.
So
And I have 0 problem trying something and
Mhm.
having it fail, like, I don't have an issue with that at all, like, because if we didn't try it, then it was an automatic failure anyway, so,
Right.
so to me, it was just a lesson learned, that's all, it wasn't necessarily a failure or anything like that, but, and I really felt like if you're gonna ask somebody to watch videos every single month, and so it was monthly, there
Mhm.
was like 4 or 5 videos each month. And if you're gonna ask people to come back every single month, you need to make sure that that content is actually gonna be there. And so the fact that some designers wanted to just pop in, give you their, or whatever. And then a lot of people were like, "Well, I don't wanna do that until October if it's not due until November." Well, I can't tell somebody that there's gonna be content in October if I only have content through March. You know what I mean? So I really wanted all that content up front, which is what you said, like that whole,
Mhm.
what's the word for it when they
The
call it?
summit.
Yeah, like it's more like a summit, you know what I mean? And I think
Mhm.
people and that may have been a failure on my part to not really express it the best way or whatever, but we treated it more like the weekly collaboration versus
Mhm.
treating it more like a summit where you need everything up front. So,
Right.
it just didn't and so it made me very miserable.
And we don't want that. The organizer needs to be the happiest one.
So I was constantly going, "I'm sorry that I'm miserable, and I know you can feel it, and don't worry, it'll pass, it'll be over, and there'll be no hard feelings, but for right now, we're miserable and we gotta get through it." So
Yeah, yeah,
and
kind of that babysitting aspect of the coordinator role has got to be the worst thing. It's like, we're all adults. Can we just do what we say we were gonna do and meet the
yeah,
deadline?
yeah, yeah. So I like these, block patterns, it's hosted on someone else's thing, and I go into it knowing that I'm probably gonna do more than 1 or 2 blocks patterns because if somebody falls through, I can just throw in a block pattern. It's not the same as having to make a whole video content type thing, whipping up a singular block and a one-page pattern is way easier on somebody if we have a missing week or whatever. So, it's just a lot easier, and so I prefer those more, but, and I would say that I had a little extra time, but I never do really have extra time, but I felt like I had a little extra time to do it this time around, so.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. What how do you bridge the how do you move your customers from being a freebie collector to being a paid supporter? Because it seems like in the quilt world, there are so many free patterns. We could quilt for 50 years and never buy a pattern because there's so much free stuff available. And yet
Sure,
we want to be paid for our design time and our skills.
sure. So, when I start the collaboration, I always express to people that the goal is always to make money. My goal 99.99% of the time is to make money. Like even when I send a newsletter, my goal is to make money. I'm not there to fluff anybody. I'm not there to tell anybody how my dog is doing. I do that because you're supposed to. But my ulterior motive is to make money. Like end of story. Like it's a job. I do it for work. I have to eat and I have to be paid. So when we do these collaborations, even though we're giving away a free pattern, people are always like, "Well, I'll give a coupon, 30% off anything in my store, or, I'll, da da da." And I say, you've already given them a coupon. You know what I mean? You've already given them the free pattern. That's their coupon to get into your store. You know what I mean? let them buy something at full price after that, in terms of that. But I always say find a way in whatever your business is to make money, even if it's off of a free thing. So what I do personally on these collaborations is I make little kits, and I've talked to several designers about this, and it doesn't work for everybody, and that's cool, and everybody has their own thing. But I try to do an under $10 price point because a lot of times they don't have a problem parting with $10. You can do free shipping if you can put it in an envelope and it only costs you 70 cents or whatever the cost of a
Mhm.
stamp is today. So, you have a lot of perceived value when you can give free shipping, and putting something in it that they either makes their life easier or that they just you don't think they're gonna have, or that, is unique to you in some way or whatever. And so I mean, I sell little kits all the time. So, yeah, I organize it, and yeah, I have to do all the work, but I'm also making money every single week off of it, you know what I mean? And I tell people that all the time. Try to find a way that works in your business to make money even though you're giving something away for free, you know?
That's
Um, yeah.
really
So
good consideration.
yeah, like, because I agree that, we have this weird freebie mentality. I agree with that, and it's a thing, and so many people struggle against it, and so many people dislike it and are very vocal against it, and that's totally okay. In the book world, it's insane how much free stuff we give away. So when I go back over to the quilt industry, I'm like, "Oh, that's nothing," I'm like, yeah, I give away a free pattern all day long, because like in the book world, so one of these little collaborations in the quilting industry, I might give away over the course of the 50 weeks, we might give away, I don't know, 1,000. I'm just randomly making
Mhm.
up a number. We may give away 1,000 patterns. At that same amount of time in the book world, I'm giving away 100,000 books. So, you know what I mean? Like, so when I give away one pattern, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I don't care. Like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? It doesn't even translate to my mind. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a different mentality. I think that you have to really think about it's a loss leader, and then you have to figure
Mhm.
out how you're gonna make that turn into money. And
Right.
I'd imagine it's different for everybody, everybody has their own set of products and things like that, but for me, I do it with little kits, and I have
Mhm.
them laser cut. I always have an applique because people hate to trace and cut out appliques. They wanna have them already ready to go, laser cut for them. They just peel off the backing, pop it down with the iron, and they're good to go, like, and so that works really well for me. I'm an appliquer, I love to applique, so, in my little kits, there's always a pre-fused laser cut applique. There's a little bit of fabric, which hardly costs anything at all, and so what I sell for 7, 8, 9, $10 costs me like $3.
Yeah.
I'm making $7 off of it or whatever,
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
and yeah, you have to sell a lot of $7 things in order to make money, but I've also sold a few, fabric bundles, a couple $100
Mhm.
here and there. I've sold books now at this point. I've sold a bunch of patterns and stuff like that. Um, everybody just has to really try to figure out how to make money in whatever
Right.
way for their business.
Right. Yeah. And there's, like you said, there's so many options and combinations that people can put together that, um,
Yeah,
keep
yeah, like
keep
if
trying. I'm encouraging the people that are listening, keep trying. You'll hit your stride, and um, it'll work out.
yeah, I didn't know these things 5, 6 years ago when I started doing all that. Like, I had no idea. Like, I had 0 clue. Like, when I'm telling you, I had, like, less than 0 clue. I had negative clue. But, like, if you're an inventor and you design rulers or something like that, use your unique specific ruler that they can only get from you. Use that in your free pattern, and they're like, "Oh,
Hmm.
wow, check this out," and they're gonna go buy your 10, 12, 15, $20 ruler, or you hope that they will, you know what I mean? Or
Right.
you put a little QR code in that shows your ruler in
Hmm.
action, and it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and everybody wants the greatest thing, so
Yeah,
even
yeah, no,
figure it out.
that definitely has been my strategy because I've been participating in summits, and so I will teach a block pattern, and just like you said, it has a unit that goes with my special ruler that's obviously my ruler will make your life so easy to make this specific block. And
Exactly.
then I also have a pattern, so then I can do a bundle. You can get the free download, you can buy the standalone ruler, or you can get the ruler and the pattern and make the whole pretty quilt. So, yeah,
Well, we'll give you a free sticker too on, just as a little, a little icing on the cake or something. Yeah.
right?
Like,
Everybody loves those little
yeah, like,
sticker and freebie
whatever,
things.
if you're into, like whatever you're into, like you can make it happen for yourself in some way. You just have to figure that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, you've mentioned books a couple times, but I want to give people the opportunity, give you the chance to tell us about the series that you have started with, your Cozy Mysteries.
Yeah. So when I was facing, the end of the Facebook Lives and I didn't have any income coming in, um, it was a tough decision to go to school and spend a significant chunk of money on that education, but I did. I went to school to learn how to do self-publishing. Basically, the school that I went through is not the same anymore, so I don't necessarily generally recommend it, otherwise I would. But, they've gone away from self-publishing, so they're
Mm,
not. Anyway, they are like, "Okay, we'll get you to write your first book in 6 weeks." That's their thing. That was their thing, and they pair you up with a coach, and let me tell you, I had whatever I paid for this school, hands down. I may not have made the financial aspect, so quickly, but hands down, just getting the access to this teacher coach that I had was phenomenal. But, and so he made me write my first book in 6 weeks, and I did it, like, if you give me a challenge. That's the thing, like, I'm really great with a challenge, and I'm really great under pressure and deadlines, so if you give me a challenge, I'm gonna rise to the occasion. So I did it in 6 weeks, but then it took me 6 months to learn how to publish it, because once you have the manuscript, you got to hire a cover designer, you've got to hire editors, you've got to figure out how to navigate KDP, and all of these other things that you have to learn. So, I did write my first manuscript in 6 weeks, but then it took me more than 6 months to figure it out. And since then, I do have a very popular series. We're on book 7 right now of 10. If I was smart and I listened to my coach, we'd be done with that series already and have all 10 books done, but I also like to dig my heels in and do whatever I want sometimes, so,
well,
I
you've got some other things going on the side, so
Yay!
it's understandable that
Yeah.
the timeline gets extended.
I'm a serious, like, overachiever. So, like, when my mind is set towards a goal or something that I wanna do, I run through it, and then I overachieve, and then I keep going until I burn out. So that's my thing, like, yeah, so I published 55 stories in 4 years, self-published them. And, yeah, so if you talk to my coach, he would say, "Well, she should have published her first 10 first before doing the other 40." But it was the other, like, 30 books that kind of they were fun, they fed my
Mhm,
soul, they gave me a challenge, they gave me something different to do. It wasn't just pumping out content, for a
mhm,
series. So there
mhm.
was a lot of reasons why I didn't go forward with it. But, yeah, so I have a very successful series. I'm generally not right now, but you can generally find it, as a bestseller, in the quilting category because it's all quilt fiction. And, I used my background to my writing, and that was thanks to my coach. Like, literally, I went to my coach and I said, "This is what I wanna do," and he said, "Oh, no, 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 that is not what you're gonna do." He's like, "You're gonna lean into this quilting, and you're gonna write cozy mysteries, and you're gonna go from there." And so I did exactly what he well, I didn't do exactly what he told me to. I did what he told me to, right? Um, eh and I took some liberties, which actually worked out really good in my favor, but, yeah, so I did that, and so it's all thanks to him because
Mhm.
who knows what would've happened if I hadn't listened to him.
Yeah, and we'll put the link down in the show notes because your author, uh, nom de plume is
Yep,
Kathryn Mykel,
yeah,
Mykel.
yep.
So, we want people to be able to find those. And yeah, they're delightful. And I love all the different patterns that you've showcased not only on the cover, but it's woven into the stories, correct?
Sure, yeah. A lot of times there is one. You know, it's challenging to juggle having to write a story, having to write a mystery. Mysteries are not easy. Um, and then to keep a series and to keep all that running and going and all those balls in the air, and then to make sure you're sticking true to the quilting on top of all that, you know what I mean? So sometimes I slip on the little quilting a little bit and there isn't as much as people would like, but my new series is full of quilting. There's a Scooby gang of quilters. There's 2 there's a quilt shop and a craft shop, so there's no shortage of quilting, crafting, sewing going on, like, so I really made sure that and every single event that happens in the town revolves around quilting, so, like, I really pumped up the quilting. Whereas my first series, um, it revolved around quilting, but there was so many other things going on it wasn't, like, every second, whereas my new series is very, like, hands-on. They're making a
Mhm.
different project, like, every couple chapters kinda thing, so I'm really trying to hone in on that. But yeah, um, the covers all have a different quote that I designed on them,
Mhm.
and, it's an
She's
inter
showing, Threading Trouble, which has it a log cabin variation?
I think they call it a Greek key.
Okay, the Greek key,
I think it's
in beautiful blues and grays, so for
yeah,
folks that aren't on YouTube, you'll want to jump over there and or go to Kathryn's website and look at all her beautiful covers there. And so are those patterns available?
they should be.
I hate to make you feel guilty, but I know at
No.
least a couple of them are.
They're well, I couldn't do both. I just didn't have it in me. I didn't have it in me to do both, and now at this present time, I'm doing both, but I'm not doing the quilts for the covers. So, um, they should have quilts, but they don't yet. I'm still
Mhm,
working on like, I do have a few of the actual physical quilts in progress, and I have some of the patterns, but, they're usually pretty generic, like the grandmother's flower
mhm,
garden or the Greek key or log cabin.
mhm.
So it's not like I have to go and reinvent that, like
Right.
I'm 10 million log cabin quilts on the planet. So they're not so unique that it's like, "Oh, I have to have that," pattern. But, they just make for really great visual background, and some
Mhm,
of it is the nature, like the sky or whatever, and some of
mhm,
it is wallpaper, the quilt to make look like wallpaper and stuff, and that's a lot of fun to
mhm.
do. I send those designs over to the, cover artist, and then they translate them and make them into covers for me, which is really great.
Yeah, yeah, fun. That whole process is so fascinating to me. Um, but pivoting a little bit to what has been keeping you so busy lately is I keep hearing that you've got projects in magazines. So tell us all about your
Oh my
your
goodness.
big push to get out there.
So my friend one of my coworker friends, my writer friends that I write with in the morning, her name is Ashley Montgomery, and she writes under the name Virginia Dell Smith, and she also writes quilt fiction. And we went to the same school, but we had already kinda seen each other through the collaborations in the Facebook group, and then we ended up in the same school together unbeknownst to each other, and then the coach tried to connect us together, so it was just and we've been together as, like, BFFs ever since, and, last year, she's like, we're watching all of our quilting friends excel. They're getting fabric deals. They're in magazines and all this stuff. And she says, I feel like we got left behind. I said, well, that's because we've been excelling in the book industry versus the quilting industry. We weren't doing both. We were just doing one or the other. And she said it several times. And it was probably the third or fourth time. I said, you know what? I'm not, we're not doing this anymore. We're not being left behind. If that's how. So it had been on my list of things to do was to submit to a magazine, and that day when I decided her and I were no longer gonna be left behind, I submitted to a magazine, and I just happened to get it, you know? And then I submitted to another magazine, and I said, "Hey, I was just in this magazine, and I happened to get that too." And then and I kept going with it. And I said, see, we're not left behind. We can make it happen if we want to. And like 22 magazines later, like I was like, holy mackerel. And she's like, now you've left me behind.
Yeah, yeah. I commit. I'm more on Ashley's end. I look at some of you guys that are just pumping this stuff out, and it's like, okay, th- they're working hard. They deserve all the glory. I'm back here in my lane doing my thing. So we'll just
It's and
there's
it's
room for all of us and all
there,
different levels.
there is room for all of us, and that's the great thing. And so I was burnt out from writing the books, because I went to the wall with them nonstop 24/7 for almost 5 years straight. And I was burnt. I mean, I had several burnouts, but I was like, okay, enough is enough. I've had enough of this grind. And I said, we got to do something different. It's just because I have zero self control. What's zero self control? That's why.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I
So,
hear you on that.
yeah.
Now, question on some of these magazines, because the few that I've done, I did not have to write the pattern. I could just make the quilt, give them some basic information about block sizes and that kind of stuff. And their editing team took care of the rest of the pattern writing. Has that been your experience, or did you have to do the sample plus the written pattern?
I feel like there's a few magazines that you don't really have to write the pattern for them, but for most part, they're going to give you the rights back, and I have a philosophy about that too. If you want to hear it in a
Mhm,
minute, but they're going to give you the rights back anyway. So I just go ahead and write the pattern at the beginning, and then I
mhm,
just give them what I've written for the pattern, and they can do what they want with it. They're not going to
mhm,
take my pattern and use it. You know what I mean? They're going to rewrite it anyway, but
mhm,
they'll have everything they need, and they can't say, well, I don't, so I err on the side of give them more than they need. And I
mhm.
think, I think it's appreciated, but there's definitely a few out there who I wouldn't need to do that, but I do it anyway because then when I get the rights back, it's already done and I don't ever have to think about it again. Because I don't want to have to go recreate that quilt 6 months or 2 years from now. I've
Right.
long forgotten it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so
And
I'm in the habit of doing it.
yeah, and obviously for those that I did, I had a, a 90% complete pattern just because that's my process. So you come up with
Yeah.
most of how you're going to do it before you make the sample anyway. At least that's how I work when I design quilts. So,
Yeah, I figure if you're gonna go through all that effort, you know, you're gonna write the notes down anyways. You might as well just translate the notes into like, the start of your pattern or whatever. And yeah, so I have a lot of patterns written now because
yeah.
the
Yeah, that's
all the
exciting. So
magazines and
fun.
it's fun because I'm just starting to get some of those rights back because some of them are only a couple months.
Hmm.
They're only, they only want exclusivity through the length of the magazine,
Hmm.
till the next magazine comes out, which is great because, I've had a couple cover quilts that, are already a couple months old that now I can go and release those, which is awesome because it's the start of show season right now, quilt show, because I
Hmm.
do in-person quilt shows throughout the spring and the fall. And when I show those they're like, well, where's the pattern? And I'm like, well, you can get the magazine. I can sell them the magazine, or now
Hmm.
at this point, I can just sell them the pattern, which is really
Right.
great. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
terrific that you've
yeah.
got that whole library that you can continue to market for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like I said, I go from one extreme to the next. So this is my extreme right now. And so, I'm coming out with patterns in the Island Boutique catalog. Ooh, that was grueling. That was really
Mhm,
challenging. And then I've got, I think 5 or 6 coming out with the different shop hop magazines in the different
mhm,
states that which, and every single one of them is completely different than the next. So it's challenging to keep track of what they need you to give them,
mhm,
what layout it needs to be in, what the timeline is and all that stuff, but, I have a good base, I think, all of that because when you're self-publishing so many books, I had a publishing schedule. I was able to schedule out myself for 2 years. I had all of my, my editing and all my book covers, all that stuff was scheduled, very
Mhm.
scheduled for many years. And so I can already just translate that to the magazine and the patterns. I can say, "Oh, in this section of time, I can do this many, whatever, and they need to, that kind of stuff." So, it's really all about being disciplined when you're trying
Uh-huh.
to do that much stuff.
For
I wouldn't
sure.
recommend it to anybody else. I would just say
Yeah.
do one, you know? You don't need to do 10, just do 1, that's fine. But, yeah, like I said, overachiever with no self-control, that's my name.
Yeah, you're in good company. There's plenty of us out there
Yeah,
that are resonating with those
for sure.
confessions. So yeah, that's great. Well, this has been wonderful, Kathryn. Tori did have to drop off to take care of some family issues, but we always like to end our conversations with what we call our rapid fire questions. But before we do that, tell people where they can find you.
So it's super simple. It's www.author Kathryn Mykel Mykel.com. So I've got everything under that umbrella now, and there's tabs for the quilting if you just want the quilting. There's tabs for the books if you just want the books. You can find me wholesale there now too as well. Um, yeah, I'm on
Awesome.
social media, Instagram as Dragonfly's Quilting Design Studio. I'm on TikTok as my author profile. Facebook, I have like 7 different Facebook groups, so just, you know,
Yeah,
hunt me
yeah, we
down,
didn't
you'll
even get
find me.
into that. That's another conversation is, Facebook and social media
Oh,
management and all that kind of
I
stuff.
know.
Wonderful, that's great. So we always ask people, what is your least favorite color? What do you struggle to work with?
Maybe fall colors? I don't know. I'm pretty bright, I like bright colors, but
And you
I
say fall and you just did an autumn splendor pattern that I saw when I was looking at your upcoming releases.
I don't think I have any. I would say probably red and green are probably the least color I use, but I
Mhm.
don't have like, I'll design for any color palette there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I feel the same way that, even the brown and the orange that don't get so much love, I you can make some gorgeous,
I
qu
love orange. I love orange. I love yellow. If you give me an excuse to use a yellow thread to do quilting, I'm in heaven. And I like lime greens, like all those
Mhm.
weird colors that people, I don't know. Yeah, I love color. I really do.
Y yeah,
Yeah.
I do too. I love to explore the whole gamut of beautiful, beautiful colors, so that's what makes quilting so fun.
Yeah.
Um, Second question, do you have a favorite notion or tool either for your quilting or your writing or
Yes.
both?
I'll give you my favorite notion is seam rippers with a flat bottom, handmade by Woodcrafts by Cynthia, and I probably screwed up her name there, but Woodwork by Cynthia, and she makes wood turned seam rippers, and they have a flat bottom and they don't roll. And I actually put them in my books. Like, why we have rolling seam rippers is it boggles my mind. Anyway, that's my favorite.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, Yardage or pre-cuts?
I would say probably yardage, although I have my fair share of pre-cuts that I've hoarded. I'm a pre-cut hoarder, I'm a yardage user, so I don't know, take what
There
you
you
want
go.
from
Yep, yep, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm the same way. I like to cut my own pre-cut sizes, I guess. So
that.
I'm
Oh,
a pre-cut lover just for the dimensions, but then I like scrappy random mixes, so I don't like the whole getting the whole
no.
collection and using it all together. So,
I think
but
I
yeah,
like
that's
one-yard cuts, I'm a one-yard cut kinda gal.
okay, okay, nice. Um, who is inspiring you right now? And it can be through any aspect of the world.
Oh, I'm stumped, I don't know, who is inspire me? I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that. Um, I think what I'm doing right now is I'm working, not working, I guess, but, I'm a Benetech social star,
Mhm.
and, that's something that had been on my plan for a long time. Like, I love Benetechs. I always used them in the store. I always had, like, a Benetech's fat quarter box is like my crack, and, I just love it, and so right now I'm doing that, and I think that is inspiring me to find my place in the quilting industry and, like, find my people.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I guess maybe.
Yeah, no, that totally fits because it just I guess it's not necessarily who is in a person, but what
Yeah.
program or, what in the world, where are you finding your inspiration? And having that type of program is, uh, is so much fun. I definitely, um, liked when I was a fabric ambassador, having those kind of monthly prompts, and it's like, "Okay, what do we get to do, and where are we stretching our creativity?" Not so, um are those projects gonna be highlighted on Benetech's website? Where can people find your socialite?
I would say check my Instagram and check probably Benetex's Instagram, but I think they're doing newsletters as well.
Okay.
Yeah, we just did a charity one, and so they just published that on their Instagram, and I published it on my Instagram, and, I think right now I'm trying to figure out how to navigate this world without doing videos. That's my
Oh,
goal, is, like, how do you navigate this industry without being, like, a video-centric kind of business, because I think everything we do right now is turned to video, 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 and I just
yeah.
after doing the Facebook Lives for 2 years, I don't wanna be
Mhm.
on video anymore, like, it just like, 2 years straight of video, it was, like, enough for
Uh-huh.
me, and so, I think what's inspiring me right now is just learning about all the different fabric manufacturers, learning about the different magazines, learning about the different things that I can do within the industry, and figuring out where my people are and, like, where
Mhm.
my niche is and where my lane is, and yeah.
That's great. Last question, what's the favorite part of running your quilt business?
Making money. No, I'm just kidding. Um, sales, I like to sell. I'm a salesperson, I like to sell. Yeah, so I
Right.
think, the creativity obviously is my favorite part, but there's nothing like trying to sell to somebody and taking money out of pocket.
Yep, yep.
I'm just kidding. It's only because I have to eat, you know what I mean? If I didn't have to
Well,
eat and
yeah.
didn't have to survive, then it would be a different story, but, no, I love the creative part, so you'll find me procrastinating will be designing or putting pretty pictures in my patterns or whatever
Mhm.
the case may be, and then on the other hand of it is just trying to figure out how to sell things to people so that I can make money and survive.
Right,
So, yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much
Awesome.
for spending time and telling us all these fascinating things about quilting and writing and all of it. So we wish you much success and thank you again for being here.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks for hosting.
Well, Tori, I'm sorry that you had a family emergency, but I had a great conversation with Kathryn, and I know you listen as you put the episode together. So, what was your big takeaway from our conversation?
It was really fun to listen back. I am sorry I missed more of the questions with Catherine. I would have loved to ask her a little bit more about, or hearing a little more in person about self-publishing. But I think my biggest takeaway from Catherine was how frank and upfront she was about how her business is here to make money. And I think that is important for everyone to keep in mind because we tend to want to do things just for fun, just for impact, but we are a business and we do need to keep in mind that the things that we do, the time we spend, the energy that we put in needs to be a return on investment. It needs to make money in order to keep this business alive. So I appreciated how frank she was about that and how much she put that in the forefront of her planning. What was your takeaway, Andy?
Yeah, I loved that that those comments as well on, we don't we're in business and it's okay to make money and I want to get paid. So that is refreshing and I was so impressed by her work ethic and the way she is juggling her multiple income streams, because she has book writing, and yes, it started out as quilt fiction, but I think she's branched out into some kind of the meet cute romantic, chick lit, whatever label you want to put on it. They don't always center around quilts, so she's branching out with her writing, and then she just has flooded the market with her magazine submissions, and she obviously is having success with that, but that means a lot of work on the other end when you're just doing back-to-back samples for magazines because your designs are so popular. Fun problem to have, but yeah, it requires a lot. So I was impressed with that devotion to just keep hustling.
That's a wrap on today's conversation. We hope it gave you something real to take back to your business.
And if you liked this episode, please hit subscribe and leave us a review. It helps more quilters find the show and feel a little less alone on their entrepreneurial journey.
And if you want more support, from behind the scenes content to live chats, you'll find more in our Quilting on the Side community on Patreon. And as always, don't forget to do
a little quilting on the side.